Me and you, Aaron,
Yeah.
fantastic volunteers. We are great at doing lots of work for no pay.
That's right.
There it is. Y'all are ready for church ministry. Come on down, and I'll get you. I got instruments for you guys to play in chapel. Come on, let's go.
Oh, Josh, that would look and sound just like that one guy who's playing the keys in that beautiful jazz band. That would be me. That would.
Oh,
be
don't
me.
worry. Don't you worry. We have plenty of keys players. Don't you? You don't need to be worrying about keys.
Would you prefer me on a trumpet? Because I think that would be worse.
You get to play bass, my good sir. I get to teach you.
No.
YouTube, what's up?
My.
Hi, YouTube. Do any of you YouTubers play bass and are in
Probably.
Dallas?
We get enough viewers that by just, I don't know, statistically speaking, there should be someone that watches this stream that also
shouldn't be just me in Dallas, or
Right.
shouldn't be just me in Texas.
Now, if we can find a bass player that watches us that also lives in Texas, we may be out of luck there. But yeah.
Aaron, I just had to put the number next to Kansas because it makes me feel happy.
Yes, thank you. It's beautiful.
It is a
spent 3 hours
glorious
looking at this thing.
We did it. I love everybody just afterwards. We did it. Like, we did it. We actually did something.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, YouTube. I got trying to pull my recording software up, and it's right in front of Johnny's face.
There it is.
Incredibly, they actually have Kansas ranked a spot ahead of me. So I guess I hate Kansas now too, unfortunately.
Yeah, tough.
You either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Are we? We're live, right? Yeah, it looks like we're live. All right.
Oh, good. I'm glad that quote was said live.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it deserves to be.
Only the most cryptic of statements will make it live.
Lance Leipold is not the hero we deserve, but the one we need right now.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly.
Part of me does feel bad, like Kansas. We're like, yeah, Kansas 5-0, and then we're like, where's your coach going to go after this season? Certainly,
I hope nowhere.
I know. I hope that.
I hope
too,
nowhere.
I
hope he stays. Yeah. Please stay.
Hope you guys enjoy the 1 year that you're good for the next 40 years.
I mean, did you see the? Actually, my favorite video that was used was the Fox Sports with Hercules, and it was like, "Welcome, my son, home." And it was, of course, Hercules is Kansas, and everyone's cheering for him. Like all of the other teams are cheering for Kansas. Like, you did it. But that made me feel good. I'm sorry, Kansas, for picking against you. I had a moment of weakness, a moment of doubt. I wanted you to make it, and I'm glad you're here.
Quick note before we get into things: Did you have Paul Christ on your hot seat before this week?
Yes.
Okay,
I did. Now, shocked that he didn't make it to the end of the season.
Yeah.
Personally, like, especially after losing to Illinois, I was like, okay, he's done. But I really thought they'd let him finish the year. So just that's usually how Wisconsin does business. But they also have not fired a coach in like decades. So
Bielema left.
Bielema left. Even Mike Riley left.
Oh,
so like they just don't.
They're not used to firing. Yeah,
they're not used to firing people. So, what's Barry Alvarez doing? Is he? He wanna? I know. Leonard is taking over, but which, of course, one of the potential guys that's also on the list there. So that's as about as a deep of a list as I could make coming out of my mind. I'm sure there's additional people, especially coordinators as well, but head coaching guys. That's really what I was thinking of. So again, hoping Lance Leipold and some of these guys stay where they are, but I also realize that's probably not likely.
Yeah.
But I'm good when you guys are good.
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I think I'm good too.
All right. I will start recording now. Ready to go.
Check. All right, cool. Welcome to the Fifth and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. I am joined once again by my good friends Josh and Jonny. We are back for another episode, guys. It's good to be with you. Episode 82. And like always, it seems like there's a ton of stuff to get to. Lots of college football, lots of NFL, lots of just a little bit of everything else. But before we get to all of that, Josh, how are you doing? How was your week?
Guys, I am happy to be here and I'm happy to be alive in front of you virtually. I had a very harrowing experience on Thursday. As you know, down in Texas, we like our things spicy.
Oh, no.
Are you familiar with
what did you do?
Well, what did I eat? Are you guys familiar with the Pocky One Chip Challenge?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
So,
but
okay. So the Pocky One Chip Challenge it's one chip. It's about, I don't know why I'm doing visuals for a podcast, but it's not that big. It's about the
for
size
those
of a
not
big,
watching our YouTube live stream, chip sized was the size that he was holding up.
I would say large chip size, not unreasonable, but like large, like think of a Dorito, like I'd say double the
A large tortilla
size
chip.
Large tortilla chip. Thank you. Yes. And so it's rated at about 2 million Scoville units on the spiciness scale.
Whew.
And the goal is, they release versions of it each year. I promise this is not going to be what I'm following. I'll make this story shorter. But anyway, like 8 of us took this chip. Not the same chip. We all had our own chip. And the goal is to last 30 minutes without water.
Oh my gosh.
And so we did it all together. And you know what? After about 10 minutes, my pain started subsiding, which was good. And honestly, it was fine. Now, the crazy thing is, I had not eaten anything all day because sometimes when you're going to school and you're doing classes and your class ends at 9:35, you're like, I'll just eat dinner afterwards. Walked into my room. My room was like, hey, yo, we're all going to go try that one chip challenge. And I'm like, I'm in. And I didn't even eat dinner. And I went down. And so my stomach had nothing in it except a coffee from a few hours earlier.
Oh, no.
And an entire chip that was 2 million Scoville units hot. And so if you've ever had that feeling
Great recipe
in your mouth of, oh my gosh, I want to die. Well, imagine that in your stomach too. And I was not the only dumb one. There was like half of us who had also been doing that. And so for the next, I will say, I texted people the next day. I'm like, hey guys, how you hanging in? We were all dead. We were all like, it was the most harrowing experience I've ever had, honestly.
Like that scene from Parks and Rec where they're all
my
just
gosh.
on the
I was
ground.
literally, the floor is my friends. That was literally me. And so it was a great time. 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10. I'll improve for the next time by eating something beforehand.
Josh, you're brave,
Very
man. I don't think I'd go anywhere close to that. You are
honestly,
a
the
brave
worst thing
soul.
about it is that it just didn't taste good. And then also I didn't want to die for 3 hours after. But
oh goodness. Well, good on you, man. That just seems like the right Texas thing to do. So, well done, Jonny. How was your week? Hopefully, less harrowing experiences for you this week.
Very good. Very little sleep. Much sports, soccer and football specifically for the most part. A little tennis mixed in there as well. Clarence and Bernice came back yesterday, so they're back. The Ducks are back, so we're all happy. Everything is right in the world.
Well, good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear the Ducks are back. Is that a metaphor for Oregon being back? Seems unlikely, but we'll discuss.
That's about right.
yeah.
It's about right. They come and go, just like Bo Nix's pass accuracy.
Yep. Well, good. My week was also good. I would echo the similar amount of sports and lack of sleep. It's a good week, plenty of good college football, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to this week as well. I'll just throw out, and we'll talk about it a little bit. We're again recording on a Monday night, but on Friday you have both the MLB Wildcard Series kicking off, and the NHL actually opens up on Friday. So happy early NHL puck drop for the regular season. There's a couple games going on overseas. We'll discuss more in a little bit, but just so you know, as a sports fan, there's a lot of things on the radar this week. So those are some of them, but guys, let's just jump into what we saw from college football this week. There was a lot of interesting games to watch. I believe, now again, a reminder that the AP poll is not real. It's just fake. We don't really pay attention to it. But for the purpose of this stat, we will just for the next few seconds. Guys, we had the most top 25 matchups in 1 week since 2017. So there was a lot of really good football being played. And so as a result, there's a lot to react to. There's a lot to kind of parse through to decide, okay, coming off the heels of last week's show, we talked about who's real, who's fake. Did we learn anything? I think the answer is yes. So let's start with what happened on Friday night before we even got to Saturday. UCLA won a big-time Pac-12 After Dark. That was a 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time kick on Friday night between undefeated UCLA at home, undefeated Washington, and it was undefeated UCLA. Their quarterback, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, looked fantastic. He jumped into the top 10 of our Heisman rankings with that performance. Jonny, you are a college football sicko like me, so you also stayed up until the wee hours of the night watching that game. What did you think about UCLA? Is it time to put them into the conversation as a legitimate Pac-12 championship kind of team?
Pac-12 championship, perhaps. College football playoff is too far. Here's the issue, and this is why ranking teams is so hard, and this is the issue with preseason polls in college football. The reason we thought Washington was good was because they dominated Michigan State at home when they played them. At the time, Michigan State's ranked 11th. They started the preseason, I believe, ranked like 14th, 15th. So the assumption after last year's great year under Mel Tucker that they were going to be great again. They play Washington. Washington throttles them. And so you're like, wow, Washington must be good. Well, Michigan State clearly is awful since then. UCLA really dominates Washington until towards the end. Washington made a little bit of a comeback, but really dominated them on the line of scrimmage. We're like, oh man, UCLA is really, really good. Well, we're basing that off of really Michigan State at the source. So, wow, they're clearly a decent team. They're 5-0. You're not a bad team at this point if you're 5-0. We're not saying that. How good a team is, though, is very hard to tell at this point just because we're really still banking it off the preseason poll. And so don't listen to people when they say, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where this team's ranked. Like, who cares? It matters. Mm-hmm. It matters because that's why people believe UCLA is legit. Now, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Charbonnet at running back, they're a legitimate threat to the Pac-12 title and to get to that game. However, they're not remotely close enough in my mind to make a college football playoff run.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That was kind of the takeaway I had. I was encouraged to see that they won that game. I was encouraged to see that there was at least some fans at that game, although still not nearly enough for a 4-0 versus 4-0 game on a Friday night. I know it's a Friday night. Maybe that contributes. I don't care, man. That place should be sold out. That's another discussion that we've had in the past and probably don't need to carry it over to the future because we'll talk about it. I'm sure, again, at some point when UCLA inevitably plays a game in front of a mostly empty stadium and a big game at that. By the way, this week they play.
Like next week.
Yeah. Yeah, Josh, you're right. As I drop everything.
Why do you think game day didn't go?
Yeah.
Like, I heard some people like, oh, they should go, Utah and UCLA. And first off, no, you heretic. Go. No. Kansas is the right place.
Yes. You have to.
Secondly, UCLA, like, guys, the idea of game day is, man, we're going to have this cool atmosphere early in the morning. People are going to come. There's going to be so many fans. They can't get fans to go to an actual game. Yeah. How are they going to get there at game day?
At 6 a.m., by the way, if they were going to UCLA.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
6 a.m.
On the West Coast, it's 6 a.m. Yeah. There's a reason they don't do that. And the only time they have is for Pullman and Eugene, basically. And that's because those fan bases are fantastic. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Josh, you brought it up, though. Utah heads to UCLA, and this is where we really get into the thick of the Pac-12 schedule because Utah heads to UCLA next week. The following week, they host USC, which is also still undefeated, ranked in the top 10. Some people have them in their top 5. I kind of understand that at this point with some of the talent that they've demonstrated on offense. But, Josh, I got to ask you, the game coming to your backyard, It's usually a game, and it still is, a game that is highlighted
It's still a game
on the schedule. It's still a great game, a great rivalry. But how about the fact that now that Oklahoma looked like they did on Saturday, you're going to have 3-2 unranked teams in the Red River rivalry between Oklahoma and Texas. And yes, good luck saying that 10 times fast.
Red River rivalry.
Well done.
Thank you. I've been spending all week practicing. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna hear the cheer of the crowd from my apartment. So like, that's how I will. That's how I will be on. That's how I'll get my media pass.
There you go.
But I will say the 2 losses Texas has had, I believe both, if I remember correctly, have been within a score of each other. I'd say within like definite single digits. And so, and I believe both were without Quinn, right?
That is correct.
So the reality is, I think, yes, Texas is unranked and deserves to be unranked because they are not back. However, I'm still polling for, when I say polling for, I'm fully expecting Texas to take this one, simply because Oklahoma 1000% only knows how to beat Nebraska handily, which is not a trait.
Josh, what do you think about the curse of Nebraska? Have you seen that?
There's a good conspiracy theory.
Oh, there's a conspiracy. I gotta pull up the clock.
Have you seen the curse of Nebraska? The only team after defeating Nebraska who has won a singular game this year is Georgia Southern, and I believe they have only won one game.
That is correct.
After that, so the curse of Nebraska, Northwestern in Ireland has not won since. Oklahoma has not won since. Georgia Southern has only won one. I believe they've gone 1-2 since. So, curse of Nebraska is perhaps real.
So good thing Texas didn't play Nebraska. Josh, you're right though. Quinn Ewers, if you haven't been paying attention to Texas football, like one of the highest rated prospects we've seen in a long time from the quarterback position. Of course, was at Ohio State last year, transferred to Texas, was injured early in that Alabama game. That's one of Texas's losses. You're right. And then their other one was in overtime to Texas Tech, a team that has had also a good start to the year. So Josh, I'm 100% with you. I think Texas should win. I just kind of assumed that Brent Venables' mere presence would help influence and improve this Oklahoma defense. And I do think that will happen over time. But right now, that Oklahoma defense is just
it's going to take a sec.
And Ewers is, from everything I've heard...
It's the curse of the brisket, honestly.
Yeah, you're right. It is, Josh. It is the curse of the brisket. From everything I've heard, Ewers is expected to play. He's expected to make his return, which is awesome. And I think that's only going to give Texas a leg up in this game. And I'm with you. And Johnny, I don't know what you think about this game, but I expect Texas to win on Saturday as well.
And I am assuming Dylan Gabriel, after taking that nasty hit, is not going to play either. I mean, he's in concussion protocol, after taking that hit. And I mean, that was a scary moment. It looked like he might have even been knocked out on the field. Yeah. It was a nasty hit. The TCU defender absolutely deserved to be thrown out of the game for targeting in that. I don't think it was deliberate, trying to do that, but it was a nasty hit. And honestly, that was a type of hit that warrants perhaps even a suspension for a sliding quarterback to just drill him in the head like that. Anyway, no Dylan Gabriel, Quinn Ewers coming back. I don't see a path to victory for Oklahoma. I just don't see it. And Oklahoma's really damaged Texas's psyche in the last few matchups as well.
Oh yeah,
this is Texas's chance to get
they're replaying that 2021 game every single day, nonstop, in the locker room. They're not letting that happen again. Now it may not be a blowout because again, it's still Texas.
Yeah,
they're gonna do dumb things. Cotton Bowl brain does crazy things to a person. Having Big Tex loom over you does something to a man. But he's honest, guys. I realize I'm in Texas. I'm walking distance away from Big Tex. He's too big. He's just it's too much.
How could you?
I realize it's Big Tex. I realize that's not, it's no. When you listen in pictures, it's fine, but then you get there and you're like, oh no. Yeah. So
he's not big enough.
We're bringing Johnny. I am bringing you down. Get a ticket. I'm going to take you next weekend, and on my dime, I will demonstrate to you how big.
If you can't see him from space, it's not big enough.
That's right.
He should be He should be visible from the International Space Station.
Looks like a
Otherwise, he's
claymation.
not big enough.
Oh my goodness. All right. So that we're excited for that game. It's not necessarily
Bigger
going to
the
be
text, the
a
bigger the
top
W.
25 game, but dang it, that game's going to be fun. So enjoy that one,
Yeah.
folks. All right, let's move on to another team that I thought impressed overall, and that was Clemson. Clemson had a big showdown against NC State. They won pretty handily. That defense looked really good. Guys, we talked about a conspiracy theory about Nebraska, the curse of Nebraska. Can I introduce, I don't even know if this is a conspiracy or just maybe potentially the reality. Tony Elliott was Clemson's offensive coordinator last year. And I'm not going to put all of Clemson's failures on him. That's obviously completely unfair. But DJ, Clemson's quarterback, Uiagalelei, for those that want to try to pronounce that one at home, did not have a good year in 2021, to say the least. He has looked much better in 2022 with the new offensive coordinator. Meanwhile, in the offseason, Tony Elliott, then Clemson's offensive coordinator, went to Virginia to be their head coach. He inherited one of the better quarterbacks in the country and Brennan Armstrong. And Armstrong has had a vastly worse season in 2022 than he did in 2021. Now, again, that could just be happenstance the way things have gone. But part of me wonders, was Tony Elliott just maybe slowing down these quarterbacks that we've seen? And maybe I'm reaching, maybe that's a bit of a conspiracy. Either way, the point of the story is Clemson looks like, well, I'll ask you guys the question, is Clemson back to being Clemson? And if the answer is yes, it's in large part because of what DJ has been able to do. He dropped 30 pounds in the offseason. He's playing much better. He's got some great confidence. And there's only a couple games on the schedule now that I look at with Clemson that they can remotely lose. One of them is upcoming against Florida State. The other is maybe Notre Dame, if Notre Dame has it figured out by then. Otherwise, it should be relatively smooth
doubting
sailing.
Syracuse?
Well, you're right.
Are you doubting the Qs?
I'm doubting them as far as their ability to beat Clemson. Yes. We'll talk about Syracuse 5-0 in the top 25. Amazing. Good for the Orange. First time, I believe, a 5-0 start since 87. So good for Syracuse.
Wow.
But back to the question, guys, your thoughts on Clemson. Are they back? Are they not?
I don't think it's Tony Elliott because he also was the coach for Deshaun Watson and for Trevor Lawrence. I think this was a DJ committing issue. Now, I can't speak to Brendan Armstrong. I think he's trying to implement a completely different offense. So rather than Tony Elliott building an offense around Brendan Armstrong and what he's skilled at, what he's good at, he's trying to force his offensive game plan and system onto him. I understand you have your system, you like the things the way that they are, and that's how have been successful, in the past, clearly. But when you have a senior quarterback who is already had all that experience and has that knowledge, help build a hybrid system, at least for him, until he's gone. When you bring in your new quarterback, great. But Brendan Armstrong looks slower out there. He looks like he's confused and thinking too much. Simplify it, man. Simplify it for him. But anyway, sorry. Clemson, definitely back. DJ looks committed. He looks confident. I think that's the biggest difference. He looked so hesitant last year. Again, thinking too much. He still doesn't throw that accurate of a ball. I do think there's limitations. But what you said, Aaron, sort of beating NC State, surviving Wake Forest, the two biggest challengers really in the Atlantic, I don't really see how they're not one of those top four teams at the end of the year. They can even afford to lose a game. They finished 12-1, win the ACC. They're going to be a top four team at the end. I don't really see a path where they're not. Clearly, I was off on NC State. I expected more playmakers on the offense to step up. I thought the NC State defense actually played quite well in that game, but they were on the field far too long. The offense just did not help them at all. They got some bad breaks, I think, with the officiating and reviews, but the reality is you have to score, and that offense could not get going. They're a one wide receiver group out there. The running backs were not able to get a lot of traction there, and then Leary is just getting pummeled in the backfield trying to find someone open. So, Clemson's defense vastly improved. They had the one hiccup from Wake Forest. They're good. If DJ can keep playing like this, I don't really see someone in the ACC I can see them losing a game. I can't see them losing twice, and that's really the question here.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to the Tony Elliott point, the reason I bring it up is because you talked about Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, but he was the co-offensive coordinator for them and the running backs coach. So give him credit for Travis Etienne. He became the full-time offensive coordinator in 2020 and then again in 2021. So I'm not going to completely give him all the credit for Trevor Lawrence, and although he certainly deserves some, and he's a big reason why they were recruited to Clemson in the first place. So I'll certainly give him credit for that. But thought it was just kind of an interesting story. Now you've got a 2-3 Virginia team that has really struggled. Anyways, but yeah, the point is, you're right, Johnny. Clemson's back as far as being a top 4 team, at least for this season. We'll see moving forward. I still think Dabo Swinney's reluctance to even touch the transfer portal is a little bit concerning for me as far as just long-term longevity. But for now, though, you're right. I think the schedule is wide open. The ACC is not particularly strong this year. Not that they have been the last few years either, but I do look for Clemson to be one of those top 4 teams. But speaking of disappointment, the coaching carousel is always an interesting conversation at the end of the year. Apparently this year, we're just getting a head start. Here's a list of some of the coaches that have been fired and some of the resulting buyouts. Most recently, Wisconsin's Paul Chryst was fired with a $16.4 million payout. Scott Frost, $15 million. Jeff Collins from Georgia Tech, $11.4. Herm Edwards, $9.4 million from Arizona State. Also this week, Colorado's Carl Dorrell, $8.7 million. Apparently, a buyout is just a dollar figure to somebody. It doesn't matter. Which I will say begs the question, yes, Jimbo Fisher's buyout is astronomical, but he's going to lose to Alabama, which will give them their 3rd loss. And they've got other very, very difficult teams on their schedule still. I'm not gonna fully predict that Jimbo Fisher gets fired, but from everything I'm hearing, don't completely roll it out just because of the buyout number, because we're seeing some of these other coaches get fired. But I want to talk about Paul Chryst. Wisconsin faces Brett Bielema, their former coach, Illinois, and Illinois just beats down Wisconsin. That, of course, is off the heels of yet another beatdown to the Ohio State Buckeyes. And Paul Chryst, after a 2-3 start, Wisconsin says, so long, farewell, and they have promoted their defensive coordinator, Jim Leonhard, as their head coach. But I was surprised, not so much that we talked about this before we jumped on the show. I don't think we were surprised that Paul Chryst was fired. I think the timing of it's very, very odd. Mm-hmm. Partly because it's Wisconsin, it's just something they don't do, but also the Big Ten West is bad. I know Wisconsin has an 0-2 start, but the Big Ten West is bad enough that I could still see a path where Wisconsin actually ends up in Indianapolis. It's that bad. Now, Illinois somehow in all of this seems like they might be the front runner for that, but we'll get to that conversation a different time. For now, though, guys,
Wisconsin's still tied for first.
I'm not mentally prepared for the Big Ten West, honestly.
Yeah, 1-4. Northwestern is still tied for first place in the Big Ten West.
Yep. Anyways, yes, that's a perfect illustration of how wonky the Big Ten West is. But guys, I think you guys were equally as surprised as I would as far as the timing of this firing for Wisconsin.
Overall, he is 67-26 overall, 43-18 in the Big Ten. He has 3 Big West division titles, whatever you want to call that.
Yep.
And 3 top 15 finishes. Like, that's pretty much, I don't have Bielema's numbers in front of me. That's pretty much Bielema's numbers.
Yeah. Before
he left. And so the timing is obviously, what are they? They start off 2-3. Is that their record now? Like, that's not great. That's bad. That's objectively, we would be just as furious in Ohio State if that's how Ryan Day, brought us. But like, I don't see, even if he's in the hot seat, and then Johnny, I know you've been seeing the writing on the wall for him for a little bit.
Yeah.
There's nothing within his immediate history that requires an immediate firing. To the likes of this seems more like a panic fire than a, hey, let's finish out the season. Like, if you're going to fire him. But there's no reason. You've basically just tanked your season. Now, at the same time, this is probably one of the 5 we just talked about. This is the best slot available.
Yes.
This is the prime. This is the prime coaching slots
Yeah.
for any eligible person.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. And it's one of the top ones, Josh. You're right, because of the stability that has been Wisconsin.
Oh, of
They're
course.
not in the business really of firing coaches.
No.
Now, they have legitimate expectations. I think a concern for Wisconsin is, and this hasn't been announced by the Big Ten yet, but one concern is conferences are starting to get away from divisions. And I think the Big Ten will probably hold on to theirs until USC and UCLA join. What has been a huge boon for Wisconsin, though, is having the divisions. They've had a cakewalk really up to the Big Ten title game most years, where in a lot of those seasons, they would have not been the opponent if we're just taking the two best teams in the Big Ten. Oftentimes, that would just be two teams from the Big Ten East. So they need to improve and get better in a lot of areas. I think after the fact this happened, they lose to Illinois, and in my mind, we were done. This was over.
Yep.
It was done. We knew this was going to happen. It was a matter of, I expected it to be after the season. That's just typically how Wisconsin does business. That's what my expectation was. However, I think this all is different and a unique situation from the rest of these firings because you have Jim Leonhard on your staff, who is now the interim coach and is going to be one of the hottest head coaching candidates perhaps on the market. So you already have him in-house. And I think the mindset is, let's give him a shot right now. Let's see if he can figure out and salvage this season right now. Because if he can, we know we already have our guy in-house. We don't need to look anywhere else. We don't need to have a huge head coaching search. We have our guy immediately here on staff. And I know the season hasn't gone well, but up until this year, he's been one of the best defensive minds in the country. So don't look at the scores this year and be like, why are they promoting their defensive coordinator? Their defense has sucked. They've been a brilliant defense in the past and really given Ohio State even some struggles. So I think this is all a unique situation because you have him on staff. And I don't think they were ready to hand him the job just immediately at the end of the season. And I think they might have not even wanted to get in a bidding war with other teams. You make him the interim, maybe he gets bought in, he wants to stay, he does a great job. Great, you're done. You don't have to, it's kind of a just temporary interim period. Let's see if he works, see if he can switch the season around. One of my concerns also with the team is it sounds like Braylon Allen and a lot of the players were not happy with this decision. So it'll be interesting to see the reaction of the players, how they bounce back. Like, Nebraska that week after looked terrible. You could tell, despite Scott Frost being deservedly fired, the players loved him. So that's a concern compared to Colorado or Georgia Tech or even Arizona State, where you kind of like, man, like that was so blatantly obvious how horrible those teams were playing that there was nothing that could be done. So, I was surprised on the timing, but I think Jim Leonhard is the key here and kind of changed their thought process of how they normally do business here.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's interesting to see how different teams react to that coach being fired. Because you're right, Nebraska didn't really recover very well right away. But Georgia Tech, on the other hand, goes and beats a ranked Pittsburgh team, which was interesting. So good for Georgia Tech. That was a badly needed win for that program. But we'll see what kind of the trajectory of, again, I want to say it again, that the Big Ten West is bad enough that even though Wisconsin has had a very poor start to their season, they're 2-3. It's still out in front of them. Again, I know they're 0-2 in the Big Ten. It is still out in front of them. They can win against some of these teams. I'm assuming Illinois isn't going to run the table in the Big Ten. So there's going to be opportunities for Wisconsin to get back if they can figure some things out. And I think you're right. It does start on the defense because, yes, is that offense good? No, but the usual Wisconsin defense does not seem to be there to this point. Now, part of that's just who they lost from last year, and we can take a deeper dive into Wisconsin, but that's more than you probably want to know listening, so we'll move on. But interesting story from Madison. Okay, guys, we've waited far long enough to talk about this team on this show. We really should have just ignored the introductions on this episode, because there's one team in college football that is ranked for the first time in a while, that is 5-0 for the first time in a while. We, of course, are talking about the Kansas
TCU.
Jayhawks. Well, that yeah, that's right, Josh. TCU, Kansas TCU, guys. Who would have thought a 5-0 ranked matchup? Game Day is going there. Thank you, Game Day, for making the right decision. Thank you, TCU, for beating the brakes off of Oklahoma to make this happen. Thank you, Kansas. Actually, thank you, Iowa State kicker, for missing all of your field goals. Thank you, Kansas, for being good on defense and good enough on offense to win. We have an awesome game on Saturday. This is just incredible. This is the kind of thing that makes college football great. The Big 12 is absolute madness, continues to be that. Kansas sits on top by themselves on top of the Big 12 standings. They are 2-0.
What a concept. Who'd have thought?
Who would have thought? We had to sacrifice a lot of teams for this to happen.
Yes.
We had to sacrifice Texas A&M is playing Alabama this week. That was like supposed to be the shoe-in of the century for that to be game day. And we had to sacrifice Texas A&M. Michigan State had to be sacrificed. They're playing Ohio State. Normally that's a big game. Like Oklahoma and Texas both had to be destroyed for this. We had to just, well done, Kansas. And actually, I'm not going to give credit to game day because they rejected them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Kansas and TCU came to Kansas's defense and said, absolutely not. We're making this happen. Not only will you be on game day, we will make sure you have it at home. I can't wait to see Lawrence Saturday morning. That will be a madhouse.
First time game day's ever been there.
So happy. Yes.
Yeah. Now,
which I believe there's only like seven or eight Power 5 teams then that game days never did after Kansas.
I think it's even less than that. And one of the teams is Syracuse, who, as we mentioned, 5-0. They have a bye week this week. And then I believe I think they host North Carolina State after that. So I'm not saying that's going to be game day, but I'm saying if Syracuse keeps winning, can we get a Syracuse, I don't know when they play, a Syracuse Clemson game day? Is that game even at the Carrier Dome? I have no idea. But if it is, game day, go there. Let's just knock another one off the list.
Yes.
Just truly incredible. This Kansas team is legit. Look, I think TCU beats them, but we also said that Iowa State was going to beat Kansas last week. So who are we to say that Kansas can't do something this season? So good for you, Kansas. Just so proud of you guys. Look, I know they have, at this point, now that they're 5-0, they have higher aspirations than just getting to a bowl game. But let's be honest, one more win this season and they get to a bowl game, that alone is a huge accomplishment for this team. And I know, again, they're in a situation where now they want more than that, and good for them. But hopefully we take some time and celebrate the fact that Kansas football is getting to a bowl game this year. That's awesome. So good for you, Jayhawks. Good for you. All right, one other team I wanted to talk about real quick before we move on to our other usual segments on our show. How about Ole Miss? They defended their home turf with a win over Kentucky. Jonny, I want to know your thoughts because we talked about a team in Ole Miss that we thought was overrated. They do hold serve against Kentucky, but I think I'm in a difficult position where I'm not sure Kentucky's fantastic. Like I called them fake last week as in they're not a top 10 team. I think they kind of lived up to that.
Yes.
But good job, Ole Miss. But we'll see how they really are here in the next few weeks as they face teams like Alabama.
Right. Ole Miss, I don't want to take away credit from them because they won the game and they found ways to win it. However, Kentucky lost this game more than Ole Miss won. Kentucky, Will Levis fumbled twice on 2 potential game-winning drives at the end of this game. Ole Miss's rushing attack is very, very good and impressive. Kentucky didn't have Weaver, an All-American linebacker in the game, their best player on defense, which is naturally going to be your run stopper. It's not an excuse, but it's part of the equation of Ole Miss winning. Kentucky just couldn't get out of their own way in turnovers. And Will Levis, now, he has all the physical abilities and all the size that people are looking for. People are looking for the next Josh Allen, and I think that's what we're getting caught up and seeing in him. I don't understand, even on the broadcast, they're speaking about it. An NFL scout basically saying, I would be stunned if he's not the number 1 overall pick by the time the draft comes around.
That's insane.
And I would just love for someone to explain to me what I'm missing. I would just love, if there's any Kentucky fans out there, please feel free. And I mean this earnestly. Like, what am I missing in him? He's reckless with the ball. He only has one speed in throwing it. He's inaccurate. And that's why when he throws his picks, he's usually missing people behind and high. I have a real difficulty understanding. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think he should be drafted. By no means. I don't see him even as a first-round pick, though. I think he's got a lot of work, he's more of a project than people are willing to admit, and they're trying to find a Josh Allen. Going back to Ole Miss, Dart played well, especially in the first half. I thought he fell off dramatically off script, though. He got fortunate on a couple throwaway balls that his wide receivers bailed him out. The running attack is elite, and that'll keep him in every game. The defense for Ole Miss is better. It's hard to be worse.
Noticeably better than
it
has been.
It's hard to be worse, though. It's certainly better. More playmaking. It certainly has that bend don't break, but they're forcing opportunities for turnovers to occur. That's much more than you can say in the past. I came away from that game thinking, wow, neither one of these teams is really a top 10 team. I think 15, 16 is right around where they belong. Certainly ranked. Certainly top 20 teams. I don't see Ole Miss or Kentucky having much of a shot defeating the big dogs this year.
Yeah,
my opinion.
No, I agree. That was kind of my takeaway. Not trying to disparage Ole Miss, because again, that's a very good win, but I don't see this as the team that's going to sustain that moving forward. Kentucky was really their first test of any kind, and even the not great tests that they've had turned into tests, and Tulsa gave them whatever. It's all in the past. Doesn't matter. Ole Miss is 5-0, but we'll see how legit they are in the coming weeks as they play some far more difficult opponents. That'll be interesting to see. So yeah. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our college football recap for the week. I should also point out that Tennessee, after a bye week, heads to LSU that found a way to win. So Johnny's, I'm just going to call them your team now, Jonny. Your volunteers.
They are my team. They are my team.
They have been for a while. Josh is well aware. For those that don't know, Josh, would you care to explain one of my favorite gifts that I've ever been given?
Yes. Man, and it's good to be here. It's good just to see every time I look at the AP poll, I go, wait a second. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
So proud of them. Back during the coaching drama that Tennessee endured a few years ago, where they had a guy lined up and then all of the fan base was like, no, we want someone better. Prompting said hire to back out and prompting quite a long investigation again.
Yes.
Reports were that they were asking pretty much anyone with a pulse. So it was around Christmas time. So I made a mug. I made a custom mug with the Tennessee logo and the Tennessee orange. And on the other side, the text, "This mug has just rejected the Tennessee head coaching position."
Beautiful.
And
Jim
for a
Bob Cooter
while,
said no.
For a while, every year it just got funnier and funnier.
It did. It's not quite as funny because, Josh Heupel's done a really good job there.
Congratulations. Yeah,
so good for them. But yes, Josh, I use that mug very often. Use it very
Heupel wasn't the hire after that, though.
Well,
remember, it was Pruitt.
Correct.
So
yeah, it took us a little bit of time. So
there's a Philip Fulmer coup.
Yes. Yep.
That really got out of hand.
Yeah, it really did. That was some good drama there.
It was a good time.
Yeah, but they go to Death Valley, LSU. That will be a fascinating matchup with Brian Kelly. It hasn't been pretty, but LSU is 4-1, so they've done what they need to, or 3-1. I can't remember if they've had a bye week, but either way, they've done what they can, and their lone loss is a game that they should have won against Florida State. So good for LSU. We're about to see how legit they are this week. Okay, guys. Well, if you've been following along with this show, we have referred to our fantasy football teams, and that's because the three of us, along with a couple other members of the Fifth and Goal team and some spouses, are in a fantasy football league together. It's the Fifth and Goal League. We're going to give you guys an inside scoop on how that league is going. Jonny is shaking his head. It has been pretty disastrous for Jonny. So Jonny, I'm sorry that, well, you won't have to endure this because we're cutting over to our good friends Tyler and Michael Hess. Guys, take it away with some Fifth and Goal Fantasy Football League power rankings. I think they had you ranked like 7th, Johnny. So
Not last.
no, but I think they also recorded it like before all the results go final this week. But anyways, Josh, I think you got another dub this week, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah, I gotta double check my.
I mean, I just can't catch a break.
Yeah.
I gotta, and I'm so sorry, Johnny. I really should. I need to be switching my team around. Now that Pickett's in. Now that Pickett's in.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Freaking, he's out. Hold on, I'm gonna switch with some guys. I can't. They're locked in. I'll have to do that tomorrow.
Let's do it tomorrow.
Yeah, I have some guys out. I'll be fine. I've already dubbed, but I'll be okay.
Yeah. All right. Johnny, do you want to lead picks of the week this week? I'll throw it over to you.
Sure.
All right. I'll take us in. I'll take us out of the segment that we'll be playing here. So.
Yes.
All right, thanks guys for that rundown. I'm happy to be the number 3. I shouldn't say number 2 because my wife is killing it with her team. Again, I've talked about it. Her draft strategy: draft Patrick Mahomes, draft Justin Tucker, and then draft whoever else is just there. And this happens every year where she's got a great team. It's happening again this year. So congrats to Danielle. Congrats to my brother Austin. Should be a good run as we go through this season. But that takes us from fantasy football and it takes us to our picks of the week. Johnny, we'll throw it over to you.
Yeah. For picks of the week, this last week, we picked Clemson, NC State, top 10 matchup there. Clemson handily defeated NC State. Aaron's the only one who picked them, so Aaron gets a point.
I'm not happy about it, but I'll take it.
Aaron with 43, Josh with 41, me with 38. The dreamer, of course, is behind because he picks with his heart. He should stop doing that. But for this week, opening of NHL, that has been lost in the shuffle. World Cup's coming in a little over a month. We got college and NFL football that's really ramping up. We're getting to the meat of the schedule. NHL starts at the end of this week, so that's awesome. Basketball will be starting later on, end of the month. So
Ben Simmons plays basketball tonight, by the way, guys. Preseason. He's playing.
Sports equinox. It's why October's like the best sports month.
I want to know the money lineup whether he's actually going to play.
He's in the starting lineup. I don't know. I'll give you an update in a couple minutes, but he's in the Brooklyn Nets starting lineup tonight. So,
what's the money on practice only? I'll take those odds.
I kind of want to watch that game. Is that bad?
No, because we haven't seen them.
Yeah,
it's like
I might watch that game. There's a reason I have League Pass, so I might as well put it to use. Yeah, let me quickly. Anyway. I can give an explanation for this NHL stuff we're about to pick if you want.
Yeah.
So the NHL usually kicks off like second week of October, which we are approaching. But there's a couple teams that are playing in Prague. Johnny, have you ever been to Prague? I know you've done some European traveling.
I wish I'd been to Prague. Prague looks beautiful.
Yeah. So the San Jose Sharks and the Nashville Predators are kicking things off in Prague. They're playing a game on Friday and Saturday because that's being played overseas. It's actually a 2 p.m. Eastern time start. So how about some fun afternoon hockey to start off the season? So that's kind of the background.
Yeah. Gotta watch something before Friday Night Football. Mm-hmm. Here we go. Here's some hockey for you.
Yeah.
So we got San Jose playing Nashville in Prague, as Aaron said. And since they're going all the way over to the Czech Republic, we got to get a Friday and Saturday game in. I think that's really smart. Good for the NHL, like being smart and also doing something fun. Czech Republic is one of the best countries in the world at developing hockey players. If you pay attention in the Winter Olympics, they're always one of the top countries there. So really cool to send over our teams there. I honestly think the crowds will probably be fantastic. I think that'll be cool to watch. So anyway, we got for our picks, because it's a doubleheader, we're either picking Nashville, San Jose, each to sweep, or a split. So Aaron, who are you taking?
Yeah, so my brain tells me that it's going to be a split because that just makes sense. You've got two teams, their first two games across the globe. It just makes sense that they'd find a way to split. But I do have a relatively comfortable lead in our standings, so I'm going to take just kind of a different attitude towards this pick, and I'm going to take the Predators to win both of these games this weekend. So that should be fun. I should also point out my Columbus Blue Jackets will also make a trip to Finland in November. They're playing, I can't remember who they're playing, but they're playing a couple games in Finland. So this kind of global tour will continue a little bit later for the NHL. But for now, I'm taking Nashville 2-0.
I thought long and hard about this when I looked and saw that we were transitioning into the segments. And I will tell you, first off, San Jose's logo just looks fantastic. I think they did a really good job with it. I like the colors.
So
also,
good.
here's how I'm thinking. I'm certain that Prague and the Czech Republic at large has predators. I couldn't tell you what is native to the Czech Republic, but I know they have predators. I will tell you what they don't have. They don't have sharks. I cannot imagine.
Unless landlocked Czech Republic has some sharks in the Danube. I don't think so, Josh.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking that these sharks are going to be able to just run amok. They're going to do whatever they want to do in Prague. So I'm taking San Jose to sweep.
Amazing.
The
Incredible.
logic is sound and nearly makes me change my. I'm going a split though.
Airtight.
It's airtight. It's one of the best logos though. Look it up if you don't follow hockey. It's a shark like just snapping a hockey stick in half.
incredible.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's
So
powerful.
good. Jersey colors are awesome. Split.
I like it. I like it a lot. I will say hockey logo is underrated for sure. Like there's some like
Truly.
traditional logos like Boston's, whatever. Like it's fine. It's classic. But then you get the Sharks. The Anaheim Ducks logo is fantastic. The Kraken is just incredible. Year 2 of the Seattle Kraken. We're hoping for improved results there. As you know, if you don't have an NHL team you root for, this is again an area where you are legally required to root for the Seattle Kraken just because of how great their team is. These are the rules that we've set on this show. So very good. We'll get back to you on some hockey.
Hey,
That's exciting
Listen,
to have that back.
just like you guys were all legally fans of the Breakers, you are also legally fans of the Kraken. They are playing tonight, 8 Eastern,
Ooh,
against Calgary.
Preseason hockey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Preseason hockey.
very nice. You love to see it. You love to see
Love
it.
to see it.
I love hockey. I love the NHL. I'm big hockey guy, so I may sprinkle that into what we're following if I find a way to actually watch some in the midst of all the college and the NFL and the soccer and the basketball and the baseball. And speaking of baseball, I'll kind of guide us into what we're following. In addition to the NHL kicking things off on Friday, we have some MLB playoffs. Now, if you were not paying attention, Major League Baseball expanded their playoffs this season. So that means what used to be one singular wildcard game in the American League and one singular wildcard game in the National League has become 2 series for both leagues and they're best of 3. So you're going to get 4 games on Friday, 4 games on Saturday, and then a collection of games on Sunday, depending on if any of those 4 series goes to a 3rd game. So yes, it is a best of 3 series as opposed to the one and done. I like that as much as those games were exciting, just instantly you got to win or you go home. It does feel a little bit more in the spirit of baseball, the fact that you already are playing 162 games to then just have your season gone instantly. It's a harsh reality. Baseball is just that way. But I really like the best of 3. I like the expanded playoffs. I think this is great. And then you're going to get some teams with some buys. So that's been part of this conversation throughout the last couple weeks. The Mets and Braves played a critical series over the weekend, and it was the Braves taking home enough wins that they are 98% chance winners of the division, meaning that they will have the opportunity to have a bye week in the MLB playoffs. But there's some other storylines happening that you won't want to miss. The Los Angeles Dodgers have won a franchise record 107 games. Aaron Judge's home run hitting streak continues. He's up to 61, and although he's frustrating all of us by cutting into college football games, what he's doing is impressive, and I actually push away those that are like, oh, he's just going for the 7th best mark all time. I'm like, well, call me a baseball purist, but I actually respect what he's doing a lot as compared to some folks that were cheaters, but that's an entirely different conversation for a different day with many opinions on it. And it's a great conversation to have, and maybe we'll have that conversation at some point. And I know we have in the past. But anyways, I love the postseason in baseball. I love baseball in general, but I'm certainly going to be following that, certainly going to be watching that. It will be difficult to catch all of that in the midst of what could be a very good college football week on Saturday and then the NFL on Sunday. So I'm following that. I am also following the fact that I believe that I could score against the Detroit Lions defense This team is, I know they're the Lions, so I shouldn't be surprised by how frustrating this team is. This team is 1-3. How many teams have scored more points than the Lions this season? The answer is 0. Nobody has scored more points than the Lions, yet they are 1-3. This is historically one of the worst defensive stretches we have ever seen from an NFL team. It is just horrendous. It is just putrid. Jared Goff is like a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now somehow. And somehow that's not the weirdest thing to happen on this Lions team right now. It's ridiculous. If they had, someone tweeted today, if the Lions had a bad defense, they'd be 3-1. And they're absolutely right. Instead, they have a horrific defense and they're 1-3. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be surprised by the Lions frustrating me and finding ways to lose like they do each and every year. And by the way, I'm like year 4 into being a Lions fan. I know there's people that have been Lions fans for their whole lives. So I feel it's just bad. So anyways, hopefully someone can end on a positive note, because that's where I'm leaving what I'm following is just the constant disappointment that are the Detroit Lions. I thought we were going to be in the running for a quarterback in the draft, and we probably could at some point, but we need help defensively so desperately. So I'm not even going to consider drafting quarterback. Jared Goff's good enough, clearly. So anyways.
Yeah. Aaron, they are one of the most entertaining watches every Sunday, though.
Oh.
I personally enjoy the Detroit Lions. I think they were at a 4th and 7, and we were watching, and I was just, oh, well, they're going to get it. They're down 2 scores in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
They have to score to make this continually drag this out and make it interesting. Naturally, it was like a 30-yard pass. So that is how Detroit works. Josh, before you tell us about what you're following, I had to get Kenny Pickett in here at some point. So please share your thoughts.
More like Kenny Picks. He's young. He's getting there.
I will say no. Of all 3 of those passes, I'm not sure I'd put any of those interceptions on him for what it's worth. But
no,
you're right.
No, we are going to stay patient. I drafted him as my backup to Tom Brady, a decision which I do not regret. Am I going to start him next week? We'll see. No, but he gets more than anything right now, he gets the fan base excited in a way that Mitch just is never going to, frankly. And obviously that enthusiasm will not last if he is bad. But we know nothing about him from more of a one-off game of like a pretty decent Jets team.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
we don't know yet, but
like,
decent, fine. Listen, the Steelers are going to be bad. It's going to be a bad year. It's going to be a down year. Tillman's going to break his streak of, I forget, he always gets to like minimum of 12 wins. He's going to break that streak this year. Just deal with it, accept it. It's a rebuilding year. Frankly, I'd rather have, we talked about this last week, Aaron. I think I'd rather have Kenny play backup a little bit. Just, let Mitch struggle a little bit. I know that the Steelers have expectations of Super Bowls. They're staring at the Patriots. They're staring at Tom Brady's 6 that he got just with the Patriots. And going, man, we need to at least tie back up and be the number 1. Like, there's clearly expectations for Super Bowls, and sooner rather than later. At the same time, throwing Kenny in too quickly, I mean, the division's going to whatever at this point too. So this is more just word vomit, but I'm happy with Kenny.
Yeah.
I got all the grace. I got all the time in the world for Kenny.
Yeah.
So however they feel like he can best, if he needs a trial by fire, then you know what, put him in the rest of the season. But I'm always going to have him over Mitch. I'd rather spend 5 years developing Kenny.
Yeah. I like it. Real quick, I forgot to mention, and I should apologize for this, in my conversation about the Major League Baseball playoffs, the Seattle Mariners, guys, made the playoffs for the first time since 2001.
Yes.
This is basically baseball's version of the Kansas Jayhawks. So good for Seattle. I love that team. They basically become the Reds because apparently the Reds just get rid of all their best players to Seattle. So I'm going to cheer on my Seattle Reds in the postseason. Them and the Cleveland Guardians, probably going to be the 2 teams I root for the most.
Absolutely. Josh, the Jets, though,
So
doing the Lord's work.
Doing the Lord's work.
That's right.
Taking out the Steelers and the Browns. Love it.
You know, if it took sacrificing the Steelers in order to make the Browns sad again, I'll take it. Programming notes. Mine's a little bit more lighthearted. Do you want to get your, because this is a heavy conversation with what you're following, Johnny.
Oh,
Do
yeah,
you
that's
want to
fair.
end on that, or I can make mine lighthearted?
I can go first.
Yeah,
if
that's
you would
okay.
like me to go first. It's closer to a rant anyway.
Yeah.
So, I'll go with what I'm following. What I'm following this week is Tua Tagovailoa's. I think I got that. So concussion / head / back injury.
Yeah. Good air quotes.
This is
there,
not
Johnny.
breaking. Yes, this is not breaking news. It has been discussed ad nauseum. So I'm not going to try to dwell on everything, all the details of it. I think the larger question here, though, really needs to be talked about within the NFL circles. JJ Watt even had to have a defibrillator used on him this week for an irregular heartbeat, and he played on Sunday. And listen, to be a professional athlete, I think to be an athlete in general, but especially once you get to the professional level, you are a unique individual. You have a unique drive. You are not the average everyday person, clearly, physically, but also your mental capacity, your willpower, your drive are unique, and I think more powerful than probably even the average individual. All the more reason that when you have a significant injury, especially one that's as serious as your brain and that is long-term and not recoverable from, the damage is permanent that can happen in the brain. This is not a torn ACL, even where it might affect some of your mobility long-term. That is possible when it comes to an ACL or an Achilles or any of these other injuries. It's possible. This is thought and thinking and function neurologically from the brain. You need medical staff and coaches that are going to make the difficult decisions and take players' helmets away and take them out of games. This did not happen with Tua. You see him stumble in the Bills game. How he remotely comes back in that game is beyond me and is so much farther worse than him playing in the Bengals game to begin with. That's wrong too. Listen, I've never broken a vertebrae or had a significant back injury, but I've had backs. I've never seen anybody with a back injury stumble like that, grab and shake their head to try to make their back feel better. Like that. And this is where everybody's shaming, oh, okay, here come the Twitter PhDs. No, we're genuine, everyday citizens that have never seen that before, where you would claim that to be a back injury. And we're concerned for his well-being and health and him being thrown back out there. I'm sure Tua said, please let me back out there. He's begging to be back out there. The independent doctor has been fired for this, for clearly skipping steps and not doing things properly. He might be a scapegoat. There's probably other people who need to be suspended, fined, fired as well in the process. I don't expect the player to have the thought process to say, hey, you know what? I probably shouldn't go back out there. You're not made that way. That's why you're supposed to have the team physician, the independent doctor, to deal with, your head and concussions and make sure that you don't go back out there. To lose motor function like that and to throw him back in that game was completely reckless of all kind. Then 4 days later on a Thursday night, let's throw him back out there, was insane to me. I mean, that was terrifying to see him fence. That was the term they were using, fencing with his fingers. You didn't know he wasn't moving. I mean, before the broadcast said at halftime that he was moving his extremities, we didn't know. Did he have a severe seizure? Once you have one concussion, it is so much easier to get two if you have not healed from that, and you don't fully heal from a concussion. That does not happen. Those loss of brain cells and the damage there is already done, but you can make it worse if you don't take the proper time to care and rest and heal. It just felt like, and then the Dolphins were making afterwards, oh, Tua's fine. He's watching MacGruber on the way home, with the phone. And I understand that to a point. You're trying to put us at ease, but you're not even supposed to The flying, I'm not so sure about. You're certainly not supposed to be watching screens.
Yeah.
Luckily, he's not playing this week, upcoming week. It's just announced today. I mean, they even had a press conference if Tua's not ready to go. What do you mean if? Like, this is like, even if you didn't care about the man as a person, obviously, as you should, if he's supposedly your long-term quarterback, you're going to do permanent, severe damage to him to throw him back out there anytime soon. And listen, concussions, we deal with, they affect people differently on a unique basis. It doesn't affect the same person twice. Not every concussion is the same. But that was incredibly reckless from the Dolphins. Them as an organization with an owner who's suspended don't deserve the benefit of the doubt either. We have every reason to question anything that they do as a franchise after their cheating scandal this offseason. I have lots of questions for them. And for Tua's sake, I really hope that he doesn't play anytime soon in the next few weeks. I hope he's able to fully recover, fully rest. I'm not going to say the fencing and that reaction was because he already had a concussion before, but I highly suspect it. 2 concussions in less than a week is dangerous. I've had friends who got a concussion in high school. In football, sophomore year, they never played again because the head was just never right. You don't know how they're going to affect people. So I just hope that this is a learning lesson for the entire league and college football and everybody else. These have to be taken serious. If you lose motor function like that, there is no way that player, no matter how important he is into that game, that you can put him back in there in good conscience. It is reckless. It is endangering to that player. And it should never happen. It should never happen. So that was incredibly frustrating. And I understand why people were so frustrated and so angry about seeing that and the reckless nature of the Miami Dolphins as a franchise. And I hope that investigation really brings out everything. And it's still ongoing from the NFLPA. They're the ones who fired the independent doctor, not because they hire him. So the Dolphins can't. It's not under their jurisdiction. But if there are other things that went on that were skipped, that were not taken into account, we need to improve the policy, and people need to be held accountable for their lack of decision making in that situation. So that was a scary moment. Glad to see he seems like he's doing okay, but I hope he's able to take, honestly, the next few weeks off and make sure that that is the case.
Yeah, no, completely agree. We both watched it live. It was a very, very scary thing, and glad that it was not worse than it is. But you're right, it does leave us with questions of what are we doing? And yeah, it's more questions than answers. And hopefully, ultimately, this ends up being a good thing in terms of the changes that are made because of this, and hopefully to his health, that he continues to be healthy from this point on. And yeah,
there's always risk involved in these things, but any attempts we can make to minimize unnecessary risk.
Yeah.
Because you guys both, you've been injured while playing sports before. It comes with the territory of playing sports. However, you guys both were mature enough. We joke, but you guys were both mature enough and had mature enough people around you to go, hey, we're not going to put you back in. Yeah. You had doctors and coaches and whoever being like, hey, it's not worth it. We asked for the same thing in the professionals.
Yeah. You need that same person. I got a concussion game, legs taken out from under me, fell on my head, trying to get up, trying to get back in the play. I had a teammate grab me by the collar and pull me to the side and yell at the ref that I needed to get out of there.
Yeah.
That's where Tua's teammates, his coaching staff and management, and he takes some blame here himself. They all failed.
Sure.
They all failed in the last week. So hopefully those people around him can support him and learn that lesson for next time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said, guys.
Let's I don't have a good transition out of it. I was going to do transitions, but all the transitions sounded very just insulting. You guys should know what you were 100% at risk for. Just as.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good one.
Ooh.
Right. See, it's bad. You shouldn't do it. It's an example of how not to transition. It's a bad example. Welcome to Chess Heads, the podcast within a podcast, profiling the latest and greatest
I love
within
this so much.
chess
I
and
love
other
this so much.
other non-traditional sports. I promise at some point, I promise I have things lined up. We will do things more than just scandals. But I have to update you guys real quick. The International Regulatory Board of Chess is in fact opening an investigation. They announced on Friday. They are going to investigate two things. One, they're going to investigate, if you're just catching up, welcome to Chess Heads. I'm not going to say it again. The Magnus Carlsen has accused Hans Niemann of cheating from about a month and a half ago. He just announced that literally as we were recording our podcast last week.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the FIDE is going to be launching a 3-member Here at Chess Sets, we don't worry about being able to pronounce things. That's just not a big deal for us here.
We're better than that.
We're better than that. FIDE has launched a 3-member investigatory. That doesn't sound right, but here at Chess Heads, we push through panel to examine two things: both the allegations and Niemann's admitted online cheating from a few years ago. He admits to have cheated twice. Carlsen says based on how oddly he moved within like the game that he played against me, he's like, this guy seems to have done it more than just once. So that's just a quick update. That's a Chess Heads Lights. Chess Heads Mini. And now the big one. We're going to open up a new sport here. And again, I will get to non-scandal things, but y'all like fishing? We talked about this like a year ago about whether or not fishing's a sport. But for the purpose of Chess Heads, it's a sport. It'll count for us. This is my podcast, Johnny. You just happen to be on it. This past weekend up at Lake Erie, I'm trying to remember what specific town. Just a Lake Erie Walleye Trail tournament. This is a fishing tournament.
Yeah,
They're
I
fishing
saw
for
this.
walleyes.
Yes.
Yeah. This blew up on all of our social medias.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out you can cheat in fishing, guys. So two guys had. I'm trying to figure out how. The question is how.
Yes.
So I have a few theories, but I'll explain what happened first. So what happened was how you win tournaments like this is it's basically, I think, who can catch the biggest fish. It's not most, I think it's biggest. And so you would weigh out. It looked like they were giving 3 or 4 fish, and you just weighed those, and whose ever group of 4 weighed the most, that's what you won. And you won like 30 grand. It's like maybe a $250,000 purse for the weekend. Now, the would-be winners of almost $29,000, they were disqualified. This happened on Friday after they were. So I watched the video, not live. I'm not that big into it yet, but I might be. The biggest group of fish was about 16 or 17 pounds. So they needed to be about 16 or 17 pounds in order to win. Came in at 32 pounds. Came in at almost double what their target weight was. And you could hear in the crowd, everyone's going, this isn't right. Walleyes, I'm not a great expert in these things, but they should only weigh a certain amount. And even the judges, when interviewed, were like, these things felt heavier than they should have felt. And so the organizer of the events, he was also judging, announcing he felt it. He's like, I felt something hard in it. And so what they do is they immediately pull all of the fish over to the side. During the judging, pull it over to the side, slit them all open, and find weights in all of these little, like significant, not like little, it's not like, they found weights, and they found extra fillets from other fish hidden within the fish.
Come on, man.
And
so obvious.
It was literally, it was like a cartoonish level. And so there's been some theories about how this is possible. I thought there was a chance that these things were x-rayed or some sort of investigation was done prior to make sure that this didn't happen. But so the guess is that these fish were already dead prior to the event. They were stuffed with the weights. They were then sewn back up in a way that would not appear obvious to a judge. I don't know how, but
That's crazy.
sewing. And then and then like thrown in and either like just swapped out of the last minute, or they were just, I mean, they were heavy, so they're not going to move if you just go to a certain part of the lake and just go to where you know it's going to be and pick them up and then just pretend to fish for the next few hours. And yeah, there's allegations now. These two guys, there's it's not worth it to say their names. And not that our audience is going to dox them. Don't dox people, by the way. Here at Chessheads, we don't dox. But now, 5th and goal, I don't know. But here at Chessheads. So there's now allegations that these guys have done it beforehand. These two guys, I mean, a lot of their gear, their boat, is all sponsorships. And they've won. Yeah. I mean, they are champions, so they've won multiple times before. So now there's going to be a large investigation into like how many times did they previously have done this. So there's the fishing world, the fishing community rocked. Their boat has been rocked, so to speak.
Dang. Josh, I love just you're the honesty on this podcast. Thank you. Thank you for making sure that we are all aware of those who are not being honest.
Yes.
Keeping us accountable. Love
exactly. I'm just the investigative journalist, just doing what I can to make sure that you guys know that it's already been taken care of, but I just want to let you guys know. But hey, listen, if you have hot tips, if you
yes,
keep following me for more updates.
Yes.
But if you have hot tips, send them to the 5th and Goal Sports
theories.
Twitter. Or
We'd
theories.
Love
Listen,
theories.
I'm down for a great conspiracy theory. I'll go down some weird websites just to make sure that
Lake Erie ain't that far.
Lake Erie ain't that far.
We can investigate in person if we need to.
If we need to, yeah. So if you want to see on-site reporting for this massive scandal that has obviously shaken the entire world, don't hesitate to reach out to us. All right, that's all for Chessheads.
Wonderful. The podcast within a podcast. I feel like we have to elaborate on this, Josh, at some point, and I'll promise this to our lovely listeners. And I should just also say thank you for listening this far. I feel like we need to get you like your own like smooth jazz like intro, and it's like, and now, welcome to Chessheads, but only in a way that you can do it. I certainly won't be doing that intro, Josh. We'll let you take care of that. Ben Simmons is in fact on the court in Brooklyn. Did in fact have an assist. So. Ben Simmons playing basketball. That's the thing that's actually
on
happening.
The court.
So, yes.
Did touch the ball.
We talked about it.
He's afraid of the ball.
We talked about investigations coming to the truth, and the truth is he's playing basketball. So whether you want him to or not, or whether you think he's good or not, that's to be seen. But he's playing basketball. So anyways, guys, thank you for all of your inputs, your thoughts on college football, on chess, on fishing. We got a little bit of everything, some NHL, Major League Baseball. We pretty much touched on everything. NBA, we got the whole spectrum covered for you. So hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform that you're listening on. That would help us out a lot. It helps this podcast reach more listeners, which we would appreciate. It's also free to leave a review. It's also free to follow us on social media. So feel free to do that. We're on Twitter at 5th Goal Sports. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all those places as well. Just searching 5th and Goal Sports will pop up there. So feel free to give us a follow there. You can track with our top 25, our Heisman standings, our NFL power rankings. We'll be dropping NHL power rankings here at the beginning of the season just to give you a taste of what's in store for that season. So thank you for listening. We appreciate all of your support, and we will talk to you all next week. Have a good one. And I should also give a shout out to you guys that are watching on YouTube. Appreciate it.
Josh, that was an outstanding episode of Chessheads.
Yes. I think you're muted, Josh.
Hello. I'm going to send you guys the idea. First off, thank you, Jonny. Second off, I'm going to send you guys where I'm getting the idea from. I am just kind of ripping it from another podcast. But there's a podcast I listen to that's like a comedy advice show, but it's one of the guys, it's like three brothers, and one of the brothers has his own sub segment called Munch Squad, where he just basically profiles like he just does like fast food updates. But
I love
or what he says, he literally says, "Welcome to Munch Squad, a podcast within a podcast, profiling the latest and greatest in brand eating." So I'm like, I probably need to change the wording because that is literally just a ripoff. And they can sue.
Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty generic thing. We can make
Generic.
it work for sure.
Okay, we'll find it.
Yeah.
It's Chess Heads.
Yeah.
A new and exciting segment. But yes. But no, I got rivalries up here. Like I don't want to go too esoteric, but I have a barbecue rivalry in Texas,
beautiful.
that I could pull out. Like I also need to do like fun things, not just like strife and scandal.
Those things are usually the most entertaining. So
I love the strife and scandal.
Yeah.
All about that tea.
All about it.
Yeah. I feel like that's actually, and YouTube, I don't care if you're listening to this because it's whatever. I feel like we could definitely like even reorganize how we do what we're following and just make that whole thing a new, like the podcast, like your podcast.
Oh, that could be fun.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't change anything that we do, but it just like.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, what Aaron is around here following, and then.
Yes.
Chess Heads. Or I like Chess Heads though. Chess Heads
is great.
Because it'll most likely never become. It won't be. I hope to never have to worry about a chess.
Yeah, that's the best thing about it too. Will be that it will never be about chess ever again.
it'll right. I mean, another one more
once
update.
we actually find out.
Well, true. Yeah.
Well, there was this one recurring segment that old Top Gear had, where one of the hosts like decided to follow. It was like some random like Latvian company called Dacia, and they brought out this car called the Dacia Sandero. And like he would give updates on it every now and then, like during their news segment on the show, and they would both go, "Oh, anyway." So like we could just where I'm like every now and then I just give a chess update, and you guys go, "Oh, cool." So Tom Brady, we have some options. We have some range.
Yeah.
All about.
And then this branches off. All about that range. Is there some? Johnny, I'm seeing for some reason lots of soccer drama today, coaching wise, either Premier League or like. I've been seeing a lot of Nottingham news.
Oh, maybe I missed that. I don't know. I'd have to look into it. I can't tell. I've been kind of running around today, so I was hoping for a slow news day. So, but
no such thing.
I don't know. Maybe I missed something. I haven't known it.
Oh, hold on. Maybe not.
Anybody being sacked today, as the English prefer to call it. I kind of prefer that to firing, honestly.
Sacked? Oh, it's almost delightful.
Yes, Paul Christ was sacked last night.
Steve Cooper is fighting the safest job as Nottingham Forest manager after 4-0 thrashing by Leicester, as owner Evangelos Marinakis. If I can, with former Liverpool boss Rafa Benitez as an option. So that's probably not drama, but if Nottingham's trying to make some runs for things.
They were just promoted, and it's easy to get promoted in a year. Like, it's hard to get those wins.
I was going to say, normally, I mean,
tail off quickly, you lose the opportunity. Like, you only have so many winnable games if you're Nottingham Forest. Like, you're not going to beat Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Man U, Chelsea, Tottenham. So you got to win like some of those other matches to make sure you get to the point total to just stay up that year.
Right, so, just maintain for a year. So if
this is why
Steve's not going to be the guy,
coaches,
then
this is why you see coaching changes happen like at a crazy level in soccer, because it's the desperation is there. You cannot just be awful for a year and be patient, because if you're awful, like you're losing millions and millions and millions of dollars and being relegated.
Oh yeah, so, the desperation is justified.
Yeah. So it's a little. That's when everyone's like, "Man, how do they make all these changes?" Well, because you can't really afford to have a horrendous year. You just can't.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I haven't read into that, but that's my assumption.
I think it's probably
That
more
was
recent, but yeah, that makes
Mhm.
sense. Hmm. Nice.
All right. Josh Jacob engaged.
Yeah, engaged.
Hey,
To be married.
look at that.
Yes. Did that to be married?
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's
That's
cool. So
awesome.
yeah, we're to talk evening classes against his 9 to 5 suck, but we'll talk eventually. But yeah, they're looking at they did what I feel like is we're not streaming, are we?
We are, but I can mute us. Hang on.
Okay.
Let me play some music for stream first. Hang on. Let me
Play some jazz.
Yeah, let's see here. What do we got?
Smooth jazz.
How about rock?
Smooth
That's
jazz.
the same, right?
Exact same.
It's pretty much jazz.
One second. Let's see. All right, stream. Well, give me like 2 seconds. If you're watching on the replay, good news, you can fast forward. So I'll see you in 2 minutes. All right, Josh, you're good. All right, thanks for chilling there for a second. YouTube, appreciate it. How about the fact that we get some Wednesday night college football? Now, obviously, more importantly, in the grand scheme of everything happening, is that everyone's safe with all the hurricane stuff. But it's going to sound wrong. I was going to say a benefit of the hurricane. There's really no benefits of the hurricane. But what I'm trying to say is UCF's football game got moved to Wednesday, which, from just purely a college football fan's perspective, it's a lot of fun. I love midweek college football, so that'll be fun. UCF and SMU, so it actually could be a really good game on Wednesday. Is that music coming through at all? I feel like it. I don't know if that music was coming through at all before. Not trying to like make it super loud for you guys, but. Ben Simmons even scored some points. Let's do it.
Aaron, are we still muted on chat?
I unmuted you, but I can mute you again real quick.
No. I'm at YouTube just in general. I just wanted to double check with it. Good to go.
Yes, we are good. We are
Okay.
coming through on YouTube.
Cool. Just something that I know I would totally
Yes, thank
forget.
you for.
So.
Yeah. No, thanks for the reminder there.
No
Been
problem.
awkward.
Yes. All right. No, I'm ready when you're ready to go.
All right, yeah, let's do it. Welcome back to Football Mondays, Johnny. Thanks for being here. Yeah, we talked about it on the podcast. We had basically the most top 25 matchups in a week since 2017. This week looks very different as far as that goes, but as in any week, there's always intriguing matchups if you look hard enough. I think that's the case here.
Yeah.
And I think that's certainly the case given some of what we've seen from the coaching carousel already. And we won't get into that maybe just because we've got picks and bets and everything else to get to today. But I'm curious just if you have any big takeaways from week 5 in college football. I know there was kind of a lot to digest there, depending on which games you were watching and stuff. But any like just general takeaways for week 5 as we kind of kick things off here?
10 ranked losses. Like that's the most I believe in 4 or 5 years in one weekend. Now, you just mentioned how many ranked games there were. So there were a lot already built in. I think this week was really a separation of true contenders and pretenders. Minnesota was thought, oh man, maybe they run the table or State. Mo Ibrahim's out, but they lose to Purdue, and that kind of is shattered right off the bat. NC State unable to beat Clemson again. They whiff on that one. Arkansas has this opportunity to be a legitimate threat to Alabama. They whiff on that one this week. And Kentucky and Ole Miss kind of thought maybe this is the third best team in the SEC. Maybe they can, compete with Alabama and Georgia. Ole Miss comes out on top of that. No matter, what you think of those teams, Ole Miss does come out. So you would think that their path forward is a little bit easier and better for them. I thought UCLA beating Washington. There's a lot of separation out this week. Clemson becoming a bona fide, team, really thought of in the playoff discussion, solidifies their stance and their position in the ACC. Oklahoma's not real; they're gone. So Oklahoma State beating Baylor, huge game. We didn't even really touch on that. I mean, gigantic game for them. Beat Baylor, solidify really being the top dog in my opinion in the Big 12. Besides, of course, the Kansas Jayhawks.
Of course. Yeah, that's just the best storyline ever. Is the Kansas 5-0 Jayhawks, top ranked college game day going there. I think the biggest takeaway for me is something you said. It's Clemson. I was impressed by their win, yes. But if you look in the AP poll, and I believe this is also true in your poll as well, there's 4 ranked teams in the ACC. There's Clemson, there's NC State, there's Wake Forest, and there's Syracuse. Mm-hmm. And Clemson has already beaten 2 of those 3 teams. And I love Syracuse, and I love that story, the fact that they're 5-0 for the first time, I believe, since 1987, and they're ranked, and that's amazing. And they've got a bye week, and then they play NC State. But Syracuse is not going to be Clemson, I don't think. So to me, Clemson is clearly the favorite in an ACC that's not very good. Pittsburgh, we talked about last week. We're like, okay, Coastal, Pittsburgh, you got this, right? Nope, they lose to Georgia Tech. So just
spin the wheel.
So I think that was the big takeaway for me, or one of them. I think was the 2 things. The ACC, not very good. Clemson's got that. I don't think we're really going to have to pay attention to that race a whole lot. Yes, it will be interesting to see who ultimately comes out of Coastal to challenge Clemson in the ACC title game. But I think, as in most years, it will be okay, whatever. Kind of the same thing that we've seen in the Big Ten for a long time with whoever comes out of the Big Ten West. Will it be an adventure to get there? Yes, and that will be the case again. But really, it's just that East team is going to handle business, and I think it'll probably be Ohio State, but even if it's Michigan, even if it's Penn State, I feel pretty confident that the East winner is winning there. And then the Big 12 is just
fun.
So fun. Complete, utter chaos. It's almost a shame that unless Oklahoma State runs the table, it's almost assuredly that the Big 12 gets left out of the playoff because they're going to beat each other up. But we'll see.
Deepest conference.
Yeah. Oh, by far, depending on how you look at it, the best.
Yeah.
1 through 10.
Mm-hmm. And Aaron, I know you hate expansion, but you have to that is one benefit that a conference like the Big 12 that is that good, deep, win the conference, you get an automatic spot. I think that is a benefit for sure of sometimes I think our first thought is some years the Pac-12 doesn't deserve a team.
Right.
I definitely think the Big 12 deserves a team. They might not have that top end team, but whoever wins the conference in my mind is more than deserving of the playoff berth this year, with the gauntlet that they'll have to run through and probably beat either avenge a loss in the Big 12 title game or beat a team twice.
Yeah. It should be interesting. Should be interesting for sure. So we can just get right into our picks, because I know that kind of takes us a while and we kind of get a chance to dive into some teams that perhaps we wouldn't talk about otherwise. So I have a confession to make. And I'm happy to be making this confession still in 3rd place in the 5th and goal challenge for our picks. My confession is, Johnny, that on this show, I click the button to make the pick. And then usually at the end of the week, I organize them in the correct order, confidence-wise. I forgot to do that. So I kind of got away with it because week 5, I had 22 points. You had 24, even though I didn't even confidence rank my picks.
You were better for it this week, though.
Possibly.
Yeah, honestly, not necessarily. I don't know where you would have had.
It would have been better. I would have beat you again this week. But as it is, at least in terms of our standings, in terms of we are trying to avoid eating mayonnaise ice cream, I've got 186 points through 5 weeks. You've got 171. Again, I repeat that this is still wide open. There are many more weeks to go. Although, how are we in week 6 already? My goodness, this season has just flown
It was
by.
a rough week for picks for me. Rough week.
Yes, and if you look at the standings, that was the case across the board. So, but let's get into it. We've got some interesting picks again. I believe only 3 top 25 matchups, but there's some intriguing ones. And right off the bat, let's talk about the Red River rivalry between Texas and Oklahoma. I'm picking Texas, and I'm not sure I would have at this time last week said that Texas was going to win this game, but for a variety of factors, the fact that Oklahoma's defense seems like it's just very bad, they're going in the wrong direction. You talked about it on the podcast, Dylan Gabriel concussion issues, Quinn Ewers being potentially healthy for this game, added motivation from last year. This all signs point to Texas winning this game. Now, that has not stopped them from losing this game in the past when all signs have pointed to Texas, but I'm picking the Longhorns, and I imagine you are too.
Texas gets a big lead in the game. Don't turn the channel. You're not sure that it's safe.
Yeah.
However, we're talking about Quinn Ewers. The real story here is going to be Bijan Robinson. He'll have a huge game on the ground, just like TCU just ran crazy on Oklahoma. It wasn't even always the passing game. I mean, they're just running right through gigantic holes. I'm not ready to already panic and, bail on Brett Venables. I don't think that's fair at all. Texas is going to win this game. I felt pretty good about that, knowing Quinn Ewers was coming back a few weeks ago. Now I feel great about it. Definitely Longhorns.
Yeah. It seems like, we're talking about a 3-3. Oh, we're talking about a 3-3 team. Let me just make sure we're live. I think we're back. All right, we're back. Yeah, one of these teams is going to be 3-3, and there's going to be some alarm bells either way. Less for Oklahoma, perhaps, in Brett Venables' first year. But if Texas starts 3-3, there's going to be some real concerns for Steve Sarkisian, even though he's only in really his first and a half year with Texas. But we're going to stick in the Big 12 because the aforementioned Kansas Jayhawks 5-0 against 4-0 TCU. And we both came on this show last week and said, Kansas, this is a great story. Iowa State, you're going to win. And shame on us because Kansas found a way to win that game. I'm going to probably make the same mistake again, but I am picking TCU to win. That atmosphere is going to be insane for Kansas. Don't overestimate that. But Max Duggan, I give him so much credit because it would have been so easy for him to transfer somewhere else. He did not win the starting job for TCU this season, even though he was their starter for the majority of the last 2 seasons. But he stuck with the team. Injuries gave him a chance to get back in the starting lineup, and he's thrived with a very, very good running attack. I like his leadership, his experience, and I'm taking the Horned Frogs, even though the game's in Lawrence with game day.
This game, the buildup reminds me a little bit of Washington State, Oregon, when game day was going to Pullman for the time. And you wake up and you turn on game day, and I don't know how many people I saw. I just saw flags everywhere, just flags blanketing the screen. And as soon as I woke up and saw the atmosphere, I'm like, oh crap, I'm changing my pick right now to Washington State. And they destroyed Oregon. And you could tell they just rode off the crowd's confidence. They crashed back down to earth the next week. I'm right now going with TCU. But if I wake up and on game day, there's a chance I might switch my mind. One of my biggest concerns more, on the field is Upshaw, the talented running back for Kansas, did have to get carted off the field last week. I am concerned with Kansas's depth. Now getting into the Big 12 schedule and losing one of your best players on offense, they did really struggle. Now, Iowa State has the best defense, perhaps, in the Big 12, so I don't expect Kansas to only score 14 points again. But you started to see some flaws in the offense and their inability to score, yet they held Iowa to 11 points as well. So TCU is also not going to score 52. It still has the potential to be a shootout, might be first to 40. It'll be a really fun game, even if you haven't been following Kansas. Check it out. Like this will be a blast of a game. So TCU, barely right now.
This will be a fantastic game.
Wants to pick Kansas.
Yeah, this is a 12 o'clock game on Fox Sports 1. So if that Red Rivalry, this is the tongue twister every year, Red River Rivalry. If this becomes a blowout, yes, don't completely ignore it, but yeah, flip to that Kansas TCU game if you haven't started there already.
Yeah, start there. Start there with Kansas.
Yes, we talked about the three ranked matchups. Unfortunately, they're all kind of crammed into the noon window because also at noon you have Tennessee on the road against LSU. This is an interesting, intriguing SEC matchup. I like that Tennessee offense, man. Hendon Hooker is just a baller. He does not turn the ball over. All he does is make plays with both his arm, which is electric, and his legs. Give me the Volunteers. LSU's done well to be 4-1 at this point. Quite frankly, they're an extra point away, essentially, from maybe being 5-0. But Tennessee is going to, I think Tennessee's legit, at least over LSU. Against Alabama, Georgia in a couple weeks, we'll see about that. But for now, LSU, give me the Volunteers.
I think LSU's almost exceeding expectations right now. I give Brian Kelly a lot in that chaos right now. He's doing well. He's cooking without oil, honestly, right now. Figuring it out. It feels like LSU's their own worst enemy more often than not. They're not ready for Tennessee and Josh Heupel. While they might keep it close early, they're not going to be able to keep Tennessee. Definitely with Hendon Hooker on this one.
Yeah. All right, and then the other top 25 matchup we have not touched on. It is a 3:30 p.m. Eastern time kick. The Utah Utes, 4-1, head to 5-0 UCLA. UCLA off a big Friday night win at home against the Washington Huskies. They return to the Rose Bowl in a very intriguing Pac-12 game. This is Utah's season right here. They play UCLA on the road, then they host USC. I'm going to pick, and I can't believe I'm doing this because I had Utah in my playoff. I'm picking UCLA at home. I'm picking Dorian Thompson-Robinson and that run game of UCLA. I might change my mind. This is one of those like vibe check kind of games, but I'm going to take the Bruins. This will probably be number one confidence, but give me the Bruins. It just kind of gut pick.
I am sticking with the Utes.
All right.
Love Utah. Love Cam Rising. I mean, you're right, Aaron. That just notorious difficult home atmosphere in the Rose Bowl for the Bruins might make me change my mind.
Yeah.
No way. Utah wins. You know what? I'm rethinking whether Washington's even that good right now.
Fair.
I'm rethinking if UCLA, I've seen games kind of like that from Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Michael Penix before. It's not sustaining. I trust Utah. They are stable. I'm going with the Utes. Set up a giant matchup. Get game day to Salt Lake City next week.
Yes, sir. Our good buddy Armando Villarreal will probably be there as well with some hand-painted helmets there. But my issue is because Utah does this every year. They lose a couple games early, and then they just curb stomp everybody in the Pac-12 at the end, and they end up as a 2-loss. I shouldn't say every year, because really I'm just talking about last year. But then they become a 2-loss Pac-12 champion, or even if they're not a Pac-12 champion, they're a 2-loss team that ends up in the Vegas Bowl and wins by 30. I'm trying to figure out if that's the same thing, or if they got their early loss out of the way against Florida, and they're going to be fine, or they lose to USC next week. This is a team that under Kyle Whittingham usually gets better as the season goes along. It's just hard to know right now because they really haven't faced a big test since that game against Florida. Where are they at right now? In 3 weeks, I'd say there's no way Utah loses a game because they're going to be that well coached. And Utah at Rice-Eccles Stadium is an extremely difficult place to play. I will tell you, I will be picking Utah next week unless UCLA comes out and beats them by 30. Even if they lose this week to UCLA, I will be picking Utah next week. But we'll see. I'll probably change my mind on this, but
I think I was impressed with that win over Oregon State. That was the key to me. Like, they didn't just win, and that Oregon State team's better than people think. That defense is solid. They were able to pry it open, and they completely shut down the Beavers' offense. They did nothing. And that's the same. And I know Utah was home, but that's the same Oregon Beaver team that was, a play away from knocking off the Trojans. So I just trust the stability of the Utes and Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah, that's fair, and that was a big reason why I had them in my playoff. Of course, I also had Oklahoma in my playoff, but we won't talk about that. Of course, she had NC State, so joke's on you too, I guess. But anyways, that's.
I think NC State's going to do a little bit better this year.
We'll see. I was not happy with NC State, but anyways, Clemson's good. Moving on, ACC. Speaking of. We take you back to 2021 preseason where we had circled. This is a weird. I don't know why I'm introducing this game like this. 2021, we had North Carolina, Miami circled on the schedule. Like, coastal championship basically game. Since then, they're basically 500. It feels like, and now North Carolina heads to at 500, Miami team, who, when you last saw them, lost to Middle Tennessee by giving up all of the yards. So Miami at home, North Carolina on the road. This could be first team to 60 wins this game, potentially, based on how these two defenses have played this year. I'm going to take North Carolina in a close shootout over Miami. I just think that it's possible the Hurricanes, the life is out of this program. Consider this too, with the transfer portal rules and NIL and all these things, you're seeing it with SMU. There's a lot of players that are transferring out after 4 games. And I haven't heard as many players do this for Miami, but you wonder if that kind of thought is there with this team. Have they given up now that they're 2-2? I'll just say North Carolina wins. I'm not even sold on North Carolina. I think they're somewhat fortunate to be 4-1 at this point in the season, but Drake May has been really, really good, and I'm leaning on him versus him over Tyler Van Dyke, which unfortunately has been a disappointment, although I would also point to college or his coaches potentially holding him back.
Yeah, agreed. Actually, this was one of my bets this week. North Carolina's a 4-point dog against Miami. They win straight up. North Carolina, Drake May, Mac Brown. I'm choosing stability this week. That Miami team's erratic. Mm-hmm. I mean, they even benched Van Dyke in that Middle Tennessee game. So where's the headspace on that Hurricane team? I don't know. Again, another great place to play at home too.
Yeah, and I think that's another factor why I think the Tar Heels could win this game. 80% of people on ESPN are picking that, so we'll see what that means. All right, let's move away from the Power 5. Let's move to the Group of 5. A very intriguing Conference USA matchup between the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers and the UTSA Roadrunners. Give me the Roadrunners. Give me Frank Harris. He's just a flat-out baller. UTSA could very easily be 5-0. Well, I shouldn't say easily because Texas was Texas. But overtime loss to Houston and Texas are the Roadrunners' only 2 losses this season. So give me UTSA.
Talk about a shootout. This one will be all over the place, but it'll be a lot of the run game. It'll be a blast. UTSA, let's say 52-40 in this game. It'll be fun. Check it out. It's probably on CBS Sports Network. It's actually
ESPN Plus at 6 p.m.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But you're right. That is fitting of a CBS Sports Network game. You're right.
So Roadrunners for sure.
Yeah. All right. Kansas State versus Iowa State. Iowa State back in Ames after that loss to Kansas. Give me Kansas State. Adrian Martinez is just a dynamic player. Will he ever be a fantastic passer? No, but will he be capable of running for anywhere up to 150 yards a game? Yes. I've been very impressed with his play. Turns out, yes, it was mostly Nebraska over him, at least through 5 weeks of the season, as far as whose fault the Cornhuskers' failures were. Martinez looking good. I'm curious if he will crack your top 10 of the Heisman list this week. But give me the Wildcats.
So this is where we buy into a Big 12 team. It's going really, really well. Iowa State's been super disappointing. And then all of a sudden they win a stupid game like this that makes you, okay, Matt Campbell's a good coach. They found a way to win. That feels like this game. It feels like this game. Okay. They have no business beating Kansas State. They shouldn't beat Kansas State. They probably will, but I've promised myself I'm never picking Iowa State in another game ever again. So this is in Manhattan or in Ames?
This is in Ames, yes.
Oh, Lord. I promised myself I wouldn't pick Iowa State ever again. So we'll pick Kansas State, but man, I really think Iowa State finds a way to win. They were able to slow down Jalen Daniels this last week and hold him to 14 points. One of those is off a turnover in their own red zone. Argue amongst yourselves whether you think Adrian Martinez is better than Jalen Daniels.
Sure.
I would not necessarily say that, but that is the argument there. It will be perhaps the best defense Kansas State has played all year. We'll see.
Yeah, I like it. Matt Campbell is an interesting conversation because I think both things are true with Matt Campbell. He took Iowa State from the depths of depravity and built them into a team that is a perennial bowl team. At the same time, his teams constantly underachieve and lose very winnable games and in ridiculous ways. Both are true. If I'm a team like Wisconsin, Nebraska, whoever else has a job opening, I'm not sure I'm personally reaching for Matt Campbell and saying, yes, he's the guy, clearly. I think he's great at Iowa State. Again, I repeat, Iowa State, the depths of depravity in college football before he arrived.
Much like Lance Leipold.
Yes.
Like that's where Iowa State was, where Kansas has been the last.
Yes. So I give him credit, but I also think that he could be slightly overrated as a coach. I think both, again, could be true. But that's my thoughts on Iowa State. I think they do lose this week. I've got Kansas State. Let's move to the Pac-12. This is a 7:30 kick. Washington State 4-1 heads to undefeated 5-0 USC. Again, this is a pick where if this is after dark, it is not as a 7:30 p.m. Eastern time kick. I'm thinking about Washington State. We had this conversation 2 weeks ago when they went and played Oregon. I'm like, if this is at dark, the Cougars win, and they almost won it in the light, but I've got the Trojans. That offense is too good. I know the Washington State defense is improved over past seasons, but give me the USC Trojans. Now, potential trap game because they're looking ahead to Utah. So watch out for that, but I like USC.
If there's any game this week that comes out of nowhere and is just an absolute stunner, it is this game. That being said, I will not be picking it. But the defense, we saw Oregon State laid out the game plan for Caleb Williams. Yeah. If this game's in Pullman, I pull the trigger. Because it's in LA and it's not necessarily because the Coliseum's this wonderful atmosphere. It's more just the advantage that Wazoo would have up in Pullman in that game. I would really hesitate to pick USC because USC's home. I just have to go with them. But Washington State, they're doing a heck of a job. Like they have that one weird win, loss against Oregon, should have won. They're a 13-point dog in this game. Really think about that one. I bet this is close, but I'll go with USC.
Yeah. I think it could be close too. I agree with that. All right. 2 more picks. We've got an interesting battle of independence as BYU and Notre Dame face off in Las Vegas. BYU comes in at 4-1, Notre Dame 2-2, but notably winners of their last 2 after a couple of very disappointing games to open the season. I do like BYU. I don't think Notre Dame's got it figured out on offense yet, and BYU's defense is also pretty decent. I like the Cougars, who will be breaking out black uniforms with a black blue gradient helmet for the first time. So there's a fun little tidbit for all you uniform junkies. But I will take the Cougars in from Allegiant Stadium on Saturday.
Man, I was going to go with the Irish until you told me the uniform, but I feel like I have to go with BYU after that. That.
Well, Notre Dame's got different uniforms as well.
Okay.
If that makes you feel
well. I'll have to look, and maybe that'll. Notre Dame is a 2.5 point. They are coming off a bye. BYU kind of has a mini bye, if you will, playing Thursday night in the old wagon wheel. Perhaps the last rivalry matchup with Utah State in a long time. So got to get the old wagon wheel in there. Got to get a mention.
Yes.
BYU, I feel like, should be undefeated. They laid an egg against Oregon. Their defense played outstanding against Baylor. They're away from Provo, which has been a little bit difficulty here. I'm gonna go with BYU, but I'm really thinking that Notre Dame has a better chance in this one than people expect, and that's going off of the last thing they showed me against North Carolina was quite impressive. How they were able to shut down Drake May in that offense. So, perhaps they've gotten their feet under them. Marcus Freeman has calmed all the noise. This would be a huge win for Notre Dame to move forward in their season.
Yeah, I think if this game is a true road game at Notre Dame, I am picking the Fighting Irish for all the reasons you mentioned. I think the neutral site, which will I think
it'll be pretty neutral.
Yeah, it should be actually pretty neutral, not necessarily in terms of location, but in terms of fans, which is very intriguing. So yeah, I'll say neutral site truly for this, and I will take the Cougars. Last pick. We talked about it. Your playoff team. I'm assuming you're picking NC State to rebound against a Florida State team that was so close to being 5-0. Instead, they're 4-1. Part of me thinks I want to pick Florida State because I've just not been sold on what NC State has done this year. I like Devin Leary. The offensive line is concerning. They don't run the ball very well. Florida State's got a good interior. I'm going to pick the Seminoles. I may switch my pick later on. Okay. I'm going to pick Florida State.
I'm actually picking Florida State too.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm picking the Seminoles, and I think that is that game was built up so much for NC State
Mm,
as an opportunity to almost seize control of the conference going forward, not just this year, but kind of this is ours now. We beat you 2 years in a row. The Atlantic is ours. The conference is ours. We're moving forward. We have our quarterback. We have our great, strong defense. And the defense is really what I think gives them the best chance to win. Florida State really struggled on offense to finish drives against a much worse Wake Forest defense. That Wake Forest defense, they're running all over the field, but they have way less talent than that NC State defense. That NC State, I think that it will be very telling of NC State this week. The willpower, the leadership on this team, if they can back, they should win this game. I was more impressed with Florida State being able to bounce back and come into that Wake Forest game near the end, though, and almost pull it out. The field goal kicker, though, that is my biggest concern in this game, and I am worried about being burned with Florida State just because they can't kick field goals right now.
yeah.
And that really bit them in the Wake Forest game. So that's my key concern. But this isn't mostly an X and O's pick. This is kind of just a gut feeling with how these teams react to their first losses of the season. And I think Florida State being young is almost beneficial here, where these NC State veterans came back to beat Clemson and win the ACC. And with those hopes dashed, where's the motivation? Where's their head at?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Look, NC State trying to get that first double-digit win season since 2003 when Philip Rivers was their quarterback, and I think they can find a way to do that even if they lose against Florida State, because the ACC is just not great. There's a lot of pretty bad teams in that conference. Now, there's some surprises like Syracuse and some other teams that'll make it interesting. But yeah, I'm very surprised that you actually picked Florida State. I figured you were just going to double down, but I respect the pick, and I think you're right. Where's the emotions at for this team? I think that's a very, very good point.
They're home, and they're only a 3.5-point favorite. It's very telling, very telling, because usually home is worth 3 points when it comes to Vegas. So it's an interesting look right there where I think they're concerned as well. And Florida State has the defense to shut down the one wide receiver option that is the NC State offense.
Yep. Agreed. All right. Well, very good. So we'll see how we do in our picks next week. I will do my best to remember. I think the panic that I had Saturday at like 2 p.m. realizing that I didn't confidence rank my teams, that will prevent me from doing the same. So I'll even set an alarm on my phone or whatever I got to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. All right. So speaking of picks, you've got some best bets, and we're trying to recover from a pretty rough record so far. I believe you were 9-15-1 following last week's picks. I feel like I'm not trying to steal your thunder. I feel like there was a couple that I was like, Johnny, don't do it.
Yeah,
and you did.
You did.
But that's okay. I'll let you roll through it. I'll offer some advice again to those that are playing with your Monopoly money. You are trying to not be bankrupt. You are trying to buy some property, whatever colors, spaces you like. We're here to help you do that. So Johnny, hit us with some best bets. I know you've got quite the selection this week.
We're going to try to catch up in like 1 week here, guys. So I'm going to go.
The problem is you've been trying to do this, and it's just doubling you. It's sinking you faster. But this will be the week. We've got this.
I need to put the shovel down, but this is the week.
You've got
Texas. We already talked about it, so I won't go into it. 4-point favorites against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's reeling. Texas is actually getting healthier. They looked really good against West Virginia. Even if Hudson Card is the play today, I think they still cover. Only 4 points isn't that much. Where's Oklahoma without Dylan Gabriel? So Texas covers 4-point spread. I'm going to take the next one off the board, actually, because that is madness. Louisville and Virginia. Not going to do that. I do have Utah covering against UCLA, 3.5 points. I think I would like it better if it was 2.5, but I will go with Utah. I just think they're more sound. They're not. While I think Washington has improved under DeBoer, it's 1 year. Even with the transfer portal, I think it's lulled people into false senses that a coach can fix things immediately. And he can fix parts immediately, but not perfectly. And so I until I see back-to-back games from Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I'm a believer, but let's see if he proves me wrong. Utah covers. Next, I have East Carolina over Tulane. Tulane, that emotional Houston. It was awesome to see third string quarterback on the road. For all those reasons, East Carolina, 2.5 point dog beats Tulane this week. So I think the Pirates are a good team. I think they bounce back and beat them. Next, I have Tulsa, 6.5 point favorite, covering against Navy. We've had a off and on when it comes to picks. Navy is rough this season. Tulsa has given some teams some big time trouble, even though they're 2-3.
Yep.
I really think they're one of those group of 5 teams that is much better than their record. I think they beat the Midshipmen by more than 6.5. Then I have Washington. They are 13.5 point favorites against Arizona State. Now, Arizona State, credit to them. Emory Jones played quite well against USC, Pac-12 after dark. I just see Washington bouncing back. Michael Penix has thrown for the most yards in the country. I don't see Arizona State being able to shut him down. So we'll go with Washington. Big bounce back game. I know that's actually my biggest number. I've been doing too many big numbers. And so that's my biggest one this week. I have Washington State. We already talked about the Cougars. I have them covering against USC. They're 13-point underdogs. I don't think they win, but I think they cover. I think they keep it close against USC. There's a lot of holes on that USC team. I think they lose by less than 13, maybe 10. North Carolina, they beat Miami. They're a 4-point underdog on the road. I'm really surprised by that. I know a bye week, there's just too many things to fix. And while North Carolina has a horrible defense, that'll help. Drake May is going to just go crazy on that Hurricane defense. So North Carolina wins straight up, 4-point dog. And then Air Force against Utah State. Man, both of these have been just all over.
I can't believe you're going back to the Air Force. Well, man,
I'm going back to Air Force. I told you guys I wouldn't. They're playing Utah State. Utah State's one of the worst teams in the country. What's going on in the Rocky Mountains? I mean, we got Utah State, Colorado State. Why are all of you so bad? We hate that. We'd like for you guys to be much, much better. The game is in Logan, but I do expect Air Force to win by cover the 9.5, win by 10 or more. And then lastly, Kentucky. Kentucky's going to bounce back. While I'm not a huge believer, South Carolina, they really overachieved making a bowl game last year. While they have Spencer Rattler, there's so many holes on this team that Shane Beamer needs time to fix and recruit for.
Yes.
Kentucky's only an 11-point favorite at home against South Carolina. I think they cover that 11-point spread.
That's when I'd be like, who, Johnny? Betting Kentucky to cover anything is risky business. But,
yeah, that's fair.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Is that the main one that you're concerned? Because I'll live with that. I know that was a lot. We got a lot of picks this week, so.
Yeah, I think that's the only red flag I have, I'd say.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now,
for the record, too, I also gave you a couple of Mac picks just kind of off the cuff last week, and I was horribly wrong about those. So I'm not trying to stand up here and say that I know what's happening because I don't know.
College football is weird, man.
Yep.
I won't go over all the ones week because there were too many and they were horrible. And I had some bad fortune in a couple of them once again, but that's how these work. If you ever watch Scott Van Pelt, some bad beats going on over here. So my worst one, and this one I just can live with, Georgia covering that 28-point spread against Missouri.
Oh.
No, they survived by the skin of their teeth. I know we didn't really talk about Georgia in the podcast or the show tonight, but a lot of concerns. They had some fortunate flags thrown to save them. Stetson Bennett kind of saved them down the stretch.
They closed their eyes on a false start.
Yeah, unable to run the ball. Georgia on Missouri. I mean, that pass rush was all over them. A lot of concern for the Bulldogs, especially after struggling at home against Kent State the week before. So we'll see if, that close call wakes them up. Obviously, they dropped a spot in the rankings, but that was the game that I was way, way off. Most of them, the rest of them, I was just off on the spread. So that one, not even close, 24-point difference.
Yeah, that game was ridiculous. I couldn't believe that. And
you've
got a new number one in your top 25. I feel like we should at least touch on that before we wrap up the show.
Sure. I do have the Buckeyes at number, but And I know they have not really played anybody. We expected them to have at this point in the season, playing Wisconsin, playing Notre Dame. So it's not really the Buckeyes' fault that they haven't played anybody. Typically, you play two really good programs in the first 5 games of the season. That's up there with anybody's schedule. Unfortunately, they haven't been what we had hoped for. Honestly, Toledo would be almost on equal footing with Wisconsin as far as difficulty and opponent so far this year. Toledo might win the MAC. They have Michigan State this week. That's a disappointment. However, Ohio State's done exactly what they should have in every single game and just destroyed these opponents. While that win for Georgia against Oregon week 1 is probably the most impressive win of the season, I just am starting to lose confidence in that was the real Oregon team or the real Georgia team. Week 1 can be quite weird. That was truly a home game for Georgia against Oregon. Bo Nix just can't beat Georgia either. So while I can't just burn that tape, it happened. I'm starting to be very concerned about the Georgia Bulldogs and where they're at. And then while I only dropped Georgia to number 2, part of that is Bryce Young. I need to know where that AC joint is and the shoulder and how he's doing there. The fear was a torn rotator cuff from my perspective. I took a similar fall in college on my shoulder. The way he was angry and throwing things and unable really to raise that arm was very concerning for me. So Alabama's at 3. That's really Bryce Young's health related. They looked great against Arkansas for much of that game. They had some, as most teams would against a opponent when the quarterback goes out. I'm not going to hold that against them. Especially because they were able to win by over 3 scores, I believe. So very impressive, really, to win that way on the road. I just need to know where his health is. And if he's healthy, wonderful. I almost expect Alabama to not play him at home against A&M. I don't think he's
certainly
needed.
Get away with it.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
I don't think he's needed. Exactly. No. I would rest him. You have Tennessee the week after. I'd get Bryce Young ready for Tennessee. You need him against Tennessee. Their backup quarterback, his name's escaping me. Very talented 4-star kid, inaccurate. I mean, cannon, inaccurate, but fast as can be. Oh, my goodness. If you watch some highlights between him and Jahmyr Gibbs, the Arkansas defense was just left in the dust.
Yeah, I warned all of you, too, about Gibbs. And I know I wasn't the only one. It was a relatively obvious pick. But I warned you all about Gibbs, about how good he is out of both the backfield, running the ball and catching the ball. And that has proved true. I mean, I think Alabama has a loss if they don't have Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield this year. I think probably they don't beat Texas, and maybe the game's a little bit different against some of the other teams they've played. But anyways, I agree with your assessment there. And I would completely agree with your top 25 as far as who you've got ranked towards the top there. And we'll see. That'll be a fun post in the morning to see what people think of a new number 1. For now, you talked about also Wisconsin or Notre Dame not being as good as we thought they were going to be throughout the course of this year. Now they could turn it around, but even if you look at the top 10 teams, Ohio State still has the second strongest strength of schedule. It kind of goes to show that even though we're 5 weeks in or through the season, looking ahead to week 6, we still really don't know a lot about these teams. Like, yes, Georgia beats down on Oregon, but maybe that was Georgia's best game they're going to play all season, and they really haven't played anybody of note since that point. So we'll see. They will soon, as will Alabama.
Tennessee is coming.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
They are coming.
Yeah. I think Kentucky, even though we don't believe they're real, I think Kentucky will give Georgia some issues just with that defense, potentially. So, if they keep it close, who knows?
If Weaver is ready, they desperately need Weaver at that for Kentucky. He's the best player on defense. He was sorely missed in the run game against Ole Miss. They probably win if he's there.
Yeah, probably so. So. All right, well, Johnny, thanks for doing this show.
Would you like the Sickos game real quick?
Oh, yes, please. How could I forget?
Of course. Just there are several key games. Shockingly, UConn Florida International is not my Sickos game of the week. Congratulations to both teams on wins last week. That was incredible. We feel great for both of you. Teams that did not win last week. They have lost every game. Colorado State at Nevada. 4-point favorite. Now, Nevada has 2 wins. They are terrible wins, though. And Colorado State is my second worst ranked team. So we will be keeping a close eye, a close and keen eye on this game.
That is a great pick because talk about the coaching situation there too a little bit.
Oh, yes. The former head coach of Nevada is the head coach at Colorado State.
Mike Norvell.
So in conference. So just absolutely crazy that he went from Nevada to Colorado State. More money probably, and hypothetically better recruiting situation. And wow, both teams have been just awful. So, everybody's always like, wow, Jonny, you're probably just hating on all of these teams. Why are they listed so terrible? So Colorado State has lost by I think 20 to Sacramento State in the FCS. They lost to Middle Tennessee. I guess that doesn't look as bad anymore, but it was pretty bad when they lost it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Nevada has lost to FCS Incarnate Word. They did not just lose, were crushed in that game. Now, credit to them. They have beaten New Mexico State. That doesn't mean much. And they did beat Texas State. That's why they're not ranked last. However, they are atrocious if you've actually watched their game. So this will be fun. It'll be fun.
Yeah. Yep, it will be. Make sure you follow us on Twitter to see our updated worst list. And it's not because we like to put these teams on the worst. It's so you know who to root for the most because they need your help. So that's coming out on Twitter. Make sure you follow at Fifth Goal Sports there. All right, Jonny, thank you for recording this show. Always good to get your thoughts and make some picks and some upsets and some bets and all of the above. It's always good. Guys, enjoy week 6 of college football. There is plenty of, this feels like a chaotic weeks ahead. I'll just leave it at that. It feels like we've got some chaos building. So enjoy this week. We'll see you guys next week. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That will make sure that you are following with all the content that we're breaking down for you. And it's also free and it helps us out a bunch. So hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We'll see you guys next time.